Here's a 500-word story based on the topic. Remove these 10 unnecessary items from your home immediately, from a wise old woman. In the quiet village of Elderwood, nestled between misty hills and whispering pines, there lived a wise old woman named Elspeth. Her cottage, wrapped in ivy and scented with lavender, stood as a haven for the weary and the curious. Villagers often came to her for advice, not just about herbs or healing, but about life itself. One chilly autumn morning, a young woman named Clara knocked on Elspeth's door. Her face was flushed with frustration. "My home feels heavy," she sighed. "I clean and organize, but something still feels wrong, like I'm drowning in my own space." Elspeth nodded knowingly and beckoned her inside. "You're not alone in this," the old woman said gently, pouring chamomile tea into two cracked mugs. "You've gathered too much of what doesn't serve you anymore. Let me tell you the 10 things to remove right now." Clara leaned in. 1. Old clothes you'll never wear again. "You're not who you were 5 years ago," Elspeth said. "Why let your closet pretend otherwise?" 2. Expired pantry items. "Moldy spices and stale flour carry dead energy," she warned. "Let them go." 3. Broken things you swear you'll fix. "If you haven't by now, you likely won't. Don't let broken objects fill your space with silent guilt." 4. Gifts you don't like. "Elspeth," Clara gasped. "Yes," the old woman smiled. "Gratitude doesn't mean keeping something that brings you no joy." 5. Duplicate items. "How many spatulas does one soul need?" Elspeth chuckled. "Keep what's needed, gift the rest." 6. Paper clutter. Receipts, flyers, old mail, they weigh you down more than you know. 7. Unused electronics and cords. They are relics of a past you've outgrown. Donate, recycle, release. 8. Toxic reminders. Letters from old flames, photos of broken friendships. Keep the lesson, not the evidence. Sarta 9. Excess decor. If your shelves groan with dust-covered knickknacks, it's time to let your home breathe. 10. Unfinished projects. They whisper failure each time you see them. Choose what truly matters and set the rest free. Clara sat in silence, the list settling over her like falling leaves. "It's not just about things, is it?" she asked. Elspeth's eyes twinkled. "No, dear. It's about space. For joy. For clarity. For you." Clara returned home that evening and began letting go. Each item removed was like exhaling after years of holding her breath. A week later, she returned to Elspeth's cottage, not with questions, but with gratitude. "My house feels lighter," Clara said. "So do I." Elspeth simply smiled. That's the magic of making room. Would you like this turned into a 2-sentence voiceover promo for the article? Certainly. Here's an additional 500-word paragraph to continue the story, expanding on Clara's journey and deepening the wisdom theme. As the days passed, Clara found herself transformed, not just in her home, but in her heart. What began as a simple decluttering had turned into a revelation. Every drawer she opened, every box she emptied, felt like peeling away old layers of herself. There were memories tucked in the corners. Happy ones, yes, but also wounds she hadn't realized were still sore. She sat on the floor of her bedroom one evening, holding a childhood journal filled with dreams she had forgotten, and wept, not out of sadness, but out of rediscovery. She realized she had been living under the weight of the past, letting it shape her present choices in subtle, invisible ways. In removing the unnecessary, she had created space for what mattered. She noticed the air felt different, lighter, easier to breathe. Sunlight seemed to pour through her windows more freely. Even her cat, Mocha, had stopped hiding in cluttered corners and had taken to sprawling in open patches of sun. Her mornings slowed down. Instead of rushing past the chaos, she found herself sitting quietly with a cup of tea, her mind no longer buzzing with undone tasks or looming guilt over what she should fix, clean, or finish. The wisdom Elspeth shared began to seep into every part of her life. Clara started examining her calendar the way she had once examined her closet. Were all these obligations necessary? Were these friendships feeding her spirit or draining it? She began saying no with kindness and yes with intention. Her social media apps were the next to go. They had become digital clutter, numbing her instead of nurturing her. With every uninstall, every step back from things that once demanded her attention, she felt herself stepping forward into her own life. A month after her first visit, Clara returned to Elspeth, this time carrying a basket of fresh scones and raspberry jam. The old woman accepted them with a warm grin and led Clara back to the kitchen where it had all begun. "I didn't just declutter my home," Clara said. "I decluttered me." Elspeth nodded. "That is the real work. Things are just symbols. When we clear our homes, we often find the courage to clear our hearts." Clara smiled. "And when our hearts are clear, we begin to remember who we were before the world told us who to be." They sat in companionable silence, sipping tea and watching the wind stir the trees outside. Clara didn't feel like a guest anymore. She felt like she had returned home, not just to Elspeth's cottage, but to herself. In the following months, Clara became something of a guide for others in the village. She never claimed to be wise like Elspeth, but she did speak with a new lightness. And when people asked her what had changed, she always said the same thing. "It all started when I let go of what I didn't need." You'd be surprised how much of your life isn't really yours until you make room for what is. Would you like this whole story turned into a podcast-style narration sample or just a teaser voiceover? Absolutely. Here's a 200-word continuation to deepen the ending and bring further emotional resolution to Clara's journey. As spring unfurled its blossoms across Elderwood, Clara's home stood as a quiet testament to simplicity and intention. Friends who visited noticed not just the clearer rooms or the airy feel, but something different in Clara herself. She smiled more easily, spoke more thoughtfully, and listened with a patience that was once buried beneath her own inner noise. One afternoon, a young mother from the village, overwhelmed by toys and to-do lists, asked Clara how she'd managed to change so much. Clara didn't offer a checklist. She simply invited her in, brewed some tea, and shared her story. It wasn't about minimalism, she explained, or being tidy for the sake of tidiness. It was about releasing what no longer served her, and in doing so, reclaiming her peace. "You can't welcome what's meant for you," Clara said gently, "if there's no room left to receive it." That day marked the beginning of a quiet movement in Elderwood. Homes became lighter, hearts more open, and clutter less common. But most of all, the wisdom of an old woman in a cottage continued to echo. One box, one drawer, one soul at a time. Would you like me to distill a 2-sentence voiceover version from this full story?